Hey Book Dragons, welcome back to my channel. Today, we're going to talk about the Dresden Files. Let's go. Thank you to my patrons. I really appreciate all you do to support the channel. I recently finished reading Changes, which is book 12 in the Dresden Files. And man alive, that book blew me away. It's literally the best book in the series so far. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about the series as a whole so far to where I've read. So it's kind of like a State of the Dresden Files address. I'm going to focus primarily on Changes. Because that's the most recent one I read. But I am going to kind of highlight some of the things that I've really enjoyed in the series so far. Now, I want to be very clear. Please don't spoil anything from book 13 on because, I'm not there yet. But I do want to discuss a little bit about the series so far. Now, I am going to do some general highlights. I am going to do the first part of this video spoiler-free. I am going to have a section in the middle that is spoiler-filled, specifically for book 12, but there may be other spoilers as well. I will have timestamps, chapters, everything like that. You can skip ahead if you want to skip past the spoilers, okay? And I highly recommend you do it because, especially with Changes, there were lots of changes. So if you haven't quite gotten there yet, I don't want to ruin it for you. So I will leave that right there. Look for the timestamps. I'll let you know when we get to that point in the video, okay? Make sure you subscribe to my channel. Please like the video if you enjoy it. And let's get to it, guys. So if you are not familiar with the Dresden Files, our primary character is Harry Blackstone Copperfield Dresden. He is a wizard who is a private detective in modern-day Chicago. He gets handed all the weird and quirky cases that make no natural sense in our natural world. And he's occasionally called upon by the police to help them out with those weird and strange cases, fight off supernatural baddies and everything like that. It is written in a first-person point of view, so Harry tells us the story in each book from his perspective. I've been reading it immersively for most of the series with the audiobooks. So James Marsters from Buffy the Vampire Slayer fame is the narrator for the audiobooks, and he's just absolutely amazing. The first part of the series, of course, does start off very Monster of the Week. And then as the series progresses, it gets more cohesive and more episodic, more of an overarching story that's developing. You've got a lot of different bad guys, from vampires and werewolves to demons from the Never Never, aka the Fey realm, the fairy realm. And then you've got witches and warlocks, and you've got a white council that is made up of all the high-ranking wizards, and they've set up laws of magic to keep people from letting magic get out of hand and using it for evil purposes. And it's just absolutely amazing in its scope and in its detail. It's just a really fantastic story. A lot of people talk about how Harry Dresden is a womanizer and he's got a roving eye and he's always focusing on the parts of women that attract him sexually, and he's a chauvinist, things like that. That is all true early on in the series, but it gets less and less, so don't let that completely deter you. Unless it does, and then that's fine. You don't have to read the series. But it does get less and less. Harry grows exponentially in this series, And oh my God, does he ever grow in changes. If the series up until this point has been leading Harry along a path of growth, which it has, he got handed his lunch in changes. I'll just leave it there as far as trying to avoid spoilers. He's got a lot of great supporting characters on his journey. He's got a pack of teenage werewolves that help him out on occasion. He's got his friend Karen Murphy from the police department. He's got a love interest here and there in the story. He helps a lot of people out and they help him out in return. He's got some comrades in a group called the Knights of the Cross that wield these powerful swords and serve the purposes of a higher power. And it's just a really amazing, amazing story. When I embarked upon Changes, I knew everybody had said that it really flips the story on its head. And boy, were they not kidding. I was beside myself with everything that happened to Harry in book 12. And there were things that I totally was not expecting. But after they happened, like especially a couple of things after they happened, I look back and I'm like, well, that makes a lot of sense. But oh man, I tell you what, it was just crazy. So but I highly recommend, you need to at least read up to book 12. You need to, because that's where everything, I'm going to sound redundant here, but that's where everything changes. All right. One thing that really impresses me about this series is the amount of research that Jim Butcher put into writing the story. Not only does it feel like a private detective story should, the magic also feels very realistic. I mean, you're not just seeing this guy casting magic spells and throwing down these big powerful fireballs and stuff like that. Not that that doesn't happen, but it's more detailed and intricate than that, because you see fine details given to you in the text about things that he's putting together for potions or for major spells that he wants to be able to create. He talks about the why and how he did certain things to make himself more powerful. It feels like Harry Dresden really did a lot of research into actual witchcraft to make this story feel realistic and authentic. And I love that about it. So I am going to talk about some spoilers at this point, specifically for book 12, but there may be some other spoilers as well. So if you have not read the series or you're fairly new to the Dresden Files, please step away now. Click on the part of the video in the chapters that skips you to my final thoughts, okay? Okay, if you're still watching the video, we're going to talk about spoilers, because oh my goodness gracious, this book pulled out all the stops. And if you're still watching, you already know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to talk about the things that really stuck out to me. Maybe there's some things that I missed or that I just kind of glossed over that you would like to talk about. I am going to have a spoiler comment posted in the comments. I'm going to have it pinned there so that we can talk about that stuff if you want to. Okay, so let me know, but make sure to reply to that spoiler comment to do it. The first thing right off the bat is Harry has a kid. When I read that, I'm like, oh my goodness gracious. So Susan informs Harry that their daughter has been kidnapped, and obviously there's kind of this element of, well, is she totally being truthful? He goes to see Mac at the bar, and Mac's kind of cluing him in, you might want to be kind of wary. She might not be telling you everything. But then later on in the book, there's someone else that does confirm that she is actually Harry's blood. And that just blew me away. Because, especially thinking about the repercussions of that. Susan is a half vampire. it would only take one extra step to take her over the edge to becoming a full vampire, and then to have a kid in that condition. Obviously she and Harry had sex in one of the earlier books, so it wasn't a total shock that he was a dad. But still, it's kind of a shock. It's like, wow, that's really intense, because with the mother being a half vampire, and Harry's always in danger because of his job, and of course now he's a warden. It's pretty crazy how all that went down. And that was just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, his apartment was completely destroyed by the fire. His Blue Beetle was destroyed, so I don't know if he's going to get another car, or if he's going to have to get a loaner from someone. Maybe he'll borrow one of the older cars from the White Court. Who knows? That might be kind of interesting, because he really liked that one car that he drove that Laura let him borrow. So yeah, maybe he'll borrow a car from the White Court. I mean, Thomas is his half brother after all. So hey Thomas, can I borrow a car? We'll see. I mean, obviously he doesn't want a newer car that is going to break down every time he drives it because of his energy connections. But yeah, that blew me away. I was kind of bummed, honestly. I liked the Blue Beetle. It had some character to it, and it was always running on its last legs. It's completely a junker, but it's Harry's car, and it's kind of endearing. So that was a shocker. And then, if that wasn't enough, he ends up killing Susan at the end of the book to complete the ritual in place of their daughter. And now the entire Red Court is wiped out. And I'll be honest, that was a little bit convenient. But I mean, I saw how it all came together, and it totally made sense. It was one of those only in Hollywood moments. You kind of have to suspend disbelief, but it's okay. Even though it was convenient, it really added so much to the story, and it added so much to the story going forward too, because now, without the Red Court in play, what's going to happen from here on out, right? And then, gosh, another shocker, Ebenezer is his grandfather? Well, okay, looking back through all the previous books with all the ups and downs that he's had in his relationship with Ebenezer, and Ebenezer taking him on as an apprentice to save Harry from the chopping block and all those things, even though Ebenezer is the kind of guy, he seems like the kind of guy that would just do that anyway. But maybe he wouldn't stick his neck out for just anyone, right? But he did for his grandson. And I thought that was really cool. I really did. And it really raised the stakes, right? Because if Harry's daughter had been the one sacrificed, it would have killed him, and it would have killed Ebenezer and Thomas, and who knows how many other people, right? Obviously, it would have killed Susan. It's crazy to think about all of the possible implications if things had happened differently. It was just a wild and crazy ride. It's my absolute favorite book in the Dresden Files. And now I'm really excited to find out where this goes in book 13 in Ghost Story, because Harry's dead. he's I was really shocked, and I was really bummed too, because here he was finally going to have a chance to be romantically involved with Karen, or at least, well, not really romantically involved probably, but they're gonna hook up, or they were going to hook up. And then all of a sudden he's shot by some assassin probably that's been hired by somebody, and he's dead now, I think. It seems like he was dead. So I'm really, really curious to see where that thread goes. Because there's other books in the series. So obviously Harry's going to come back to life in some shape or fashion. I don't know how, I don't know in what way it will happen, but I'm excited to see where that goes. So I was also really shocked that Harry accepted the Winter Knight position. It made sense. Harry's going to do whatever he can to protect his daughter. But that was a huge change in his position, because up until this point he's been like, absolutely not. It would be a conflict of interest for one thing, and it's just a bad decision to work for Mab in the first place. Yeah, that was really wild to see him face the turmoil of that decision of what to do with the former Winter Knight, whether or not he should really kill him, and obviously the Winter Knight wanted to die. He had been tortured and he was ready to go, but it was really cool to see that side of Dresden where he was really wrestling with that decision, with the moral implications of it, and whether or not he could ever come back from something like that, but the need to protect his daughter at all costs. That, as a father, really hit me. I was really impressed with the way Jim Butcher wrote that. So yeah, it was interesting to see that. Interesting to see the dynamic between Harry and Mananshi, his godmother. Just absolutely a wild ride. So I'm going to end the spoilers there, and we'll talk about some of my final thoughts. And it's not much. I've kind of already reiterated how I feel so far. I am going to finish this series as soon as possible. I'm going to continue it into next year. I'm already planning to keep reading at least one book a month until I finish the series. I am so happy I started reading this series, and it's really great to have those palate cleansers that I can work in with some of the bigger books, because some of the books I read are really heavy and really chunky, and so the Dresden books are pretty short, and they're easy reads, they're fun, they're lighthearted. Yeah, they deal with some really deep emotional moments, and I feel like it's just got this really great balance. One thing I will say, that there are some magnificent battle sequences in so many of these books. Changes had one of my favorite battle sequences of the entire series. All hell was breaking loose, and I absolutely loved it. The stakes had never been so high as they were in Changes, and guys, you have to read this series. You really do. So that's what I think about the Dresden Files series so far. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As I mentioned before, if you watched my spoiler section, please put your spoiler comments as a reply to the comment I will have pinned in the comments below, okay? And make sure that you're reading more books. I'll talk to you soon, guys.